The second way. This is expressed by the phrase, "it forms itself." It too involves many impossibilities and is absurd and impossible in many aspects. We shall explain 3 examples of these impossibilities. First impossibility. For you yourself are a being and not some simple substance that is inanimate and unchanging. You are like an extremely well-ordered machine that is constantly being renewed and a wonderful palace that is undergoing continuous change. Particles are working unceasingly in your body. Your body has a connection and mutual relations with the universe, in particular with regard to sustenance and perpetuation of the species, and the particles that work within it are careful not to spoil the relationship nor break the connection. In this cautious manner, they set about their work, as though taking the whole universe into account. Seeing your relationships within it, they take up their positions accordingly, and you benefit with your external and inner senses in accordance with the wonderful positions that they take. If you do not accept that the particles in your body are tiny officials in motion in accordance with the law, the pre-eternal and all-powerful one, or that they are an army or the nibs of the pen of divine determining, with each particle as the nib of a pen, or that they are the points inscribed by the pen of power, with each particle being a point, then in every particle working in your eye there would have to be an eye such as could see every limb and part of your body as well as the entire universe, with which you are connected. In addition to this, you would have to ascribe to each particle an intelligence equivalent to that of 100 geniuses, sufficient to know and recognize all your past and your future, and your forebears and descendants, the origins of all the elements of your being, and the sources of all your sustenance. To attribute the knowledge and consciousness of 1,000 Platos to a single particle of one such as you, who does not possess even a particle's worth of intelligence in matters of this kind, is a crazy superstition 1,000 times over. Second impossibility. Your being resembles 1,000 domed wondrous palace in which the stones stand together in suspension and without support. Indeed, your being is 1,000 times more wonderful than such a palace, for the palace of your being is renewed continuously in perfect order. Leaving aside your truly wonderful spirit, heart, and other subtle faculties, each member of your body resembles a single domed part of the palace. Like the stones of a dome, the particles stand together in perfect balance and order, demonstrating the eye and the tongue, for example, each to be a wondrous building, an extraordinary work of art and miracle of power. If those particles were not each officials dependent on the command of the master architect of the universe, then each particle would have to be both absolutely dominant over all the other particles in the body and absolutely subordinate to each of them, and both equal to each, and with regard to its dominant position opposed, and both the origin and source of most of the attributes that pertain only to the necessarily existent one, and extremely restricted, and both in absolute form and in the form of a perfectly ordered individual artifact that could only, through the mystery of unity, be the work of a single one of unity. Anyone with even a particle of consciousness would understand what an obvious impossibility this is, to attribute such an artifact to those particles. Third impossibility. If your being is not written by the pen of the pre-eternal and all-powerful one, who is a single one of unity, and is instead printed by nature and causes, there would have to be printing blocks in nature, not only to the number of cells in your body, but to the number of the thousands of combinations which are arranged in concentric circles. Because, for example, if this book is written, a single pen may write it relying on the knowledge of its writer. If, on the other hand, it is not written and is not attributed to the writer's pen, and if it is said that it exists on its own accord, or it is ascribed to nature, as a printed book, it would be necessary for there to be a different iron pen for each letter so that it could be printed. In a printing press, there have to be pieces of type to the number of letters in the alphabet, so that letters in the book could come into existence by means of them, pens to the number of those letters being necessary in place of a single pen. As may be seen, sometimes a whole page is written in a single large letter from among those letters with a small pen in fine script, in which case 1,000 pens would be necessary for one letter. Rather, if it took the form of your body, with all its components one within the other in concentric circles, there would have to be printing blocks in each circle for each component to the number of combinations that they form. Now, see, if you claim this, which involves 100 impossibilities, to be possible, then again, if they are not attributed to a single pen, for those well-ordered, artistic pieces of type, faultless printing blocks, and iron pens to be made, further pens, printing blocks, and letters to the same number as themselves would be necessary. And they too would have to have been made, and they too would have to be well-ordered and artistically fashioned, and so on. It would carry on in succession and ad infinitum. There, you too understand. This way of thinking is such that it involves impossibilities and superstitions to the number of particles in your body. The third way. Nature necessitates it. Nature makes it. This statement contains many impossibilities. We shall mention 3 of them by way of examples. First impossibility. If the art and creativity, which are discerning and wise, to be seen in beings, and particularly in animate beings, are not attributed to the pen of divine determining and power of the pre-eternal Son, and are instead attributed to nature and force, which are blind, deaf, and unthinking, it becomes necessary that nature either should have present in everything machines and printing presses for their creation, or should include in everything power and wisdom enough to create and administer the universe. The reason for this is as follows. The sun's manifestations and reflections appear in all small fragments of glass and droplets on the face of the earth. If those miniature, reflected, imaginary suns are not ascribed to the sun in the sky, it is necessary to accept the external existence of an actual sun in every tiny fragment of glass, smaller than a match head, which possesses the sun's qualities and which, though small in size, bears profound meaning, and therefore to accept actual suns to the number of pieces of glass. In exactly the same way, if beings and animate creatures are not attributed directly to the manifestation of the pre-eternal Son's names, it becomes necessary to accept that in each being, and especially animate beings, there lies a nature, a force, or quite simply a God that will sustain an infinite power and will, and knowledge and wisdom. Such an idea is the most absurd and superstitious of all the impossibilities in the universe. It demonstrates that a man who attributes the art of the creator of the universe to imaginary, insignificant, unconscious nature is without a doubt less conscious of the truth than an animal. Second impossibility. If beings, which are most well ordered and well measured, wise and artistically fashioned, are not ascribed to one who is infinitely powerful and wise, and instead are attributed to nature, it becomes necessary for there to be present in every bit of soil as many factories and printing presses as there are in Europe, so that each bit of soil can be the means for growth and formation of innumerable flowers and fruits, of which it is the place of origin and workshop. The seeds of flowers are sown in turn in a bowl of soil, which performs the duty of a flower pot for them. An ability is apparent in the bowl of soil that will give shapes and forms which differ greatly from one another to all the flowers sown in it. If that ability is not attributed to the all-glorious and all-powerful one, such a situation could not occur without there being in the bowlful of soil immaterial, different and natural machines for each flower. This is because the matter of which seeds, like sperm and eggs for example, consist is the same. That is, they consist of an orderless, formless, paste-like mixture of oxygen, hydrogen, carbon and nitrogen. Together with this, since air, water, heat and light also are each simple, unconscious and flow against everything in floods, the fact that all different forms of those flowers emerge from the soil in a most well-ordered and artistic fashion self-evidently and necessarily requires that there are present in the soil, in the bowl immaterial, miniature printing presses and factories to the number of presses and factories in Europe, so that they could weave this great number of living fabrics and thousands of various embroidered textiles.